The Alpha's broken vow. Lena Cross had learned 3 things growing up in the Shadowvale pack. 1. Never look an alpha in the eye. 2. Never question an order. 3. Never ever let them see what you really are. She had broken all 3 rules before breakfast. Before we continue, please subscribe. I truly can't build this community without you. Every single subscription gives me the motivation to keep improving and bringing you more content like this. Thank you so much. It was 5 in the morning and the pack house kitchen smelled like grease and resentment. Lena stood at the industrial sink scrubbing pots that were twice the size of her head, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy knot, her sleeves pushed up past her elbows, her hands raw and red from the scalding water. Same as every morning. Same as every day for the past 22 years. Her wolf sage stirred restlessly inside her, packing, agitated, pressing against the walls of Lena's consciousness like a caged animal sensing a storm that hadn't arrived yet. Easy, Sage. Not today. You say that every day, Sage growled. Every day I listen. Every day I wonder why. The kitchen door swung open and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Vera Sinclair stood in the doorway. She was beautiful the way a polished blade is beautiful, all shine and edge. Jet black hair that fell past her shoulders like liquid ink. Ice blue. Eyes that never quite warmed no matter how wide she smiled. She was the daughter of the former Beta, self-appointed queen of Shadowvale, and she had tormented Lena since they were children with the kind of cruelty that was too subtle to punish and too constant to ignore. A trip in the hallway, food knocked from her hands, rumors whispered just loud enough to hear. "Oh, Lena." Vera's voice was sugar poured over broken glass. "You missed a spot on the counter. Actually, you missed several." I suppose that's what happens when they let strays work in the kitchen. Lena kept her eyes on the pot in her hands, kept her voice level, kept everything locked down tight behind the walls she had spent a lifetime building. "I'll clean it again." "You will. And when you're done, the Alpha wants the great hall prepared for tonight's ceremony. Every surface spotless, every candle lit." Vera paused and her smile sharpened into something that could draw blood. "He's announcing his chosen mate tonight." She leaned closer, close enough that Lena could smell her perfume, jasmine and venom. "That would be me, by the way, in case you were wondering. Not that anyone would choose a packless orphan Omega, but I just wanted you to hear it from me first." Her heels clicked across the kitchen floor. The door swung shut behind her. Lena stood perfectly still. Her hands gripped the edge of the sink until her knuckles turned white. "Breathe, just breathe." "Let me out," Sage snarled. "Let me show her what an Omega can do." "No, we stay invisible. That's how we survive. Surviving is not living." Lena. Sage was right. But Lena had learned long ago that living was a luxury Omegas couldn't afford. She had no parents, no pack history, no memory of where she came from. She had been found at the edge of Shadowvale territory as a baby, a tiny wailing thing wrapped in a white cloth with nothing but a strange silver pendant around her neck. No note, no name, no explanation. The pack had taken her in out of obligation and had been reminding her of that obligation every single day since. The pendant still hung beneath her shirt, cool against her skin. She never took it off. It was the only thing connecting her to whoever had left her behind, and whoever had loved her enough to leave something behind at all. She finished scrubbing the counter until it gleamed. Then she went to prepare the great hall for the ceremony that would announce Vera Sinclair as the Alpha's chosen mate. She didn't know that by midnight everything she believed about herself would be a lie, and everything she believed about the Alpha would be shattered. Alpha Damon Blackwood was not a good man. He knew this the way wolves know winter, not as a surprise but as a condition of existence. He had made peace with it years ago, or at least he had convinced himself he had, which is almost the same thing. He stood at the edge of the training grounds in the late afternoon sun watching his warriors spar, arms crossed over his broad chest, silver-gray eyes scanning for weakness the way a hawk scans a field for movement. He found weakness in everything, in everyone. It was what made him a lethal alpha. It was what made him utterly alone. Dark brown hair pushed back from a face built from hard angles, a jaw that could cut glass. Tall and powerfully built, the kind of body that was forged through violence, not vanity. Scars mapped his forearms and knuckles like a history written in skin. Every mark was a lesson. Every lesson was a warning. Don't get close. Don't get soft, don't let them in. His father's curriculum, taught through fists and fear and the kind of love that leaves bruises instead of memories. You look like you're about to murder someone. A voice from his left. Casual, unafraid. More than usual, I mean. Beta Marcus Cole, the only wolf in Shadowvale who could talk to Damon like that and keep his head attached to his shoulders. They had been friends since before Damon became Alpha, back when Damon was just a boy with bruises he couldn't explain and a rage he couldn't contain. Marcus was the only person alive who remembered what Damon looked like when he smiled. It had been a very long time since Marcus had seen that smile. Tonight's ceremony, Damon said flatly. The mate announcement, Vera. Marcus paused, studied his Alpha's profile with the careful attention of a man reading storm clouds. You don't sound thrilled. Thrilled isn't part of the job description. Damon, you're choosing a life partner, not signing a treaty. Marcus tilted his head. Actually, for you it is a treaty, isn't it? The pack needs stability. Vera's family has influence. The elders approve. It's strategic. Strategic. Marcus let the word sit between them like a dead thing. Romantic. Romance is a vulnerability. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. The humor drained away, leaving something older and sadder in its place. Your father used to say that, he said quietly. The silence that followed could have frozen fire. Don't, Damon said. One word, a warning and a wound wrapped together. I'm just saying you're not him, Damon. You don't have to become him too. I said don't. Damon walked away. His boots crunched against gravel with the deliberate weight of a man who had learned to make every step sound like a threat. Marcus watched him go. He didn't follow. He had known Damon long enough to recognize the difference between a wall and a door. That had been a wall, steel reinforced and electrified. But Marcus also knew something Damon didn't. Walls don't keep pain out. They keep it in. The sun began to set. The pack house buzzed with preparation. Candles were lit. Tables were set. 300 wolves dressed in ceremonial clothes and filed into the great hall to witness their Alpha announce his chosen mate. Vera stood at the front. Red dress that cost more than most wolves earned in a year. Smile radiant and practiced and sharp enough to cut. She had waited years for this moment. She had maneuvered and manipulated and positioned herself with the patience of a spider building a web. Tonight the web would close. Damon stood on the raised platform in black. His silver eyes swept the crowd with the precision of a commander counting his soldiers. And in the back corner, invisible as always, Lena Cross finished lighting the last candle. She turned to leave. Their eyes met. The world stopped. It hit Damon first. A wrecking ball to the center of his chest. The mate bond, the real one, not strategic, not chosen, not calculated. Fated. Ordained by the moon goddess herself. A chain of fire and starlight detonating between two souls across a crowded room. His wolf Fenris, silent for years, obedient for years, controlled for years, erupted inside him with a roar that shook the foundations of his consciousness. She is our mate. Claim her now. Damon's hands trembled. His silver eyes locked onto the woman in the back corner, the servant, the Omega, the nobody. And for 3 eternal seconds, every wall he had ever built cracked from foundation. To the rooftop. Lena felt it too, lightning through her sternum, heat flooding her veins, sage howling inside her skull with savage recognition. Mate, mate, he is ours. The pendant beneath Lena's shirt flared hot against her skin. She gasped and pressed her hand over it. Their eyes held across the candle-lit hall. 300 wolves between them, and the distance meant nothing. The bond saw no distance. The bond saw only them. 3 seconds, an eternity. Then Damon looked away. He turned to the crowd. His voice was steady. His face was stone, not a single crack visible. Tonight I announce my chosen mate, Vera Sinclair. The crowd erupted in applause. Vera beamed. Marcus stared at Damon with a furrowed brow, sensing something wrong but unable to name it. In the back corner, Lena stood frozen. Her hand over the burning pendant. Her heart splitting down the center like wood struck by an axe. Clean, brutal, irreversible, he felt it. The bond, the real bond. The sacred, unbreakable, fated bond. And he chose someone else. Sage wailed inside her, broken, anguished, guttural. But Lena didn't cry. She had learned long ago that tears were a luxury Omegas couldn't afford. She blew out the last candle. The flame died between her fingers, and she disappeared into the dark. Lena made it to the kitchen before her legs gave out. She collapsed against the stone wall and slid to the floor. The pendant burned beneath her shirt, not painfully but with a deep, insistent heat that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, as if something inside it had woken up, as if something inside her had woken up. "He denied us," Sage growled. The wolf was wounded, pacing in tight, furious circles inside Lena's consciousness. "He felt the bond and he denied us. Can you blame him?" Lena stared at the kitchen ceiling. Fluorescent light buzzed above her. Pots still sat in the sink from this morning. The world hadn't changed at all. Only she had. "Look at me, Sage. I'm nobody. I'm the girl who scrubs his floors. You are not nobody. The bond chose us. The moon goddess made a mistake. She does not make mistakes." The voice came from the doorway. Not Sage. Someone else. Elder Miriam stood at the kitchen entrance. The oldest wolf in Shadowvale, 87 years old, blind in both eyes, and seeing more than anyone who had ever lived. She leaned on a gnarled wooden cane that was older than most of the trees in the forest. White hair hung past her shoulders like spun silk. Her sightless, milky eyes turned toward Lena with unsettling precision. "Elder Miriam, I'm sorry, I was just, the pendant is burning." It wasn't a question. It always burns when it recognizes its bloodline. Lena's breath caught. "What? Show it to me, child." Lena's hands trembled as she pulled the pendant from beneath her shirt, silver, shaped like a crescent moon cradling a tiny star, ancient, delicate, covered in symbols she had spent years trying to decode and never could. Miriam reached out with fingers gnarled like old roots and touched the pendant. Her blind eyes widened. Something moved across her weathered face, recognition and grief and relief tangled together like vines. "I wondered when this day would come," she whispered. "What day? What are you talking about?" "Sit down, Lena." Miriam lowered herself slowly onto a kitchen stool. Her cane clicked against the floor. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything you believe about yourself." Lena didn't sit. She couldn't. Her legs wouldn't cooperate with anything as calm as sitting. Miriam spoke anyway. "You are not an orphan, you are not an omega, and you are certainly not a nobody. Then what am I? You are the last surviving daughter of the Silvercrest bloodline, the most powerful wolf lineage that ever existed. Your mother was Luna Serafina, the true alpha of this territory before Damon's father murdered her and seized power." The kitchen was silent. The fluorescent light buzzed. A pot dripped in the sink. The world continued its ordinary business while Lena's entire identity dissolved like salt in water. "What?" The word came out as a whisper, barely a breath. "Your mother was the rightful ruler of Shadowvale, beautiful, powerful. She was beloved by every wolf in this territory. And 22 years ago, Damon's father, Alpha Conrad Blackwood, murdered her in a coup. He killed her guards. He burned the Silvercrest wing of the pack house. He erased every trace of her bloodline." Miriam paused. Her blind eyes glistened. "But he didn't find you. Your nursemaid, a brave woman named Elise, smuggled you out during the attack. She wrapped you in your mother's white cloak. She put the pendant around your neck, the crest of the Silvercrest bloodline, and she carried you to the border and left you where the patrol would find you. And the pendant suppressed your true wolf, your real power. It was the only way to keep you hidden. If Conrad had known a Silvercrest survived, he would have hunted you to the ends of the earth. The pendant made you appear to be an ordinary omega. It hid what you really are. And what am I really? An alpha, Lena. A true alpha. The last of a bloodline blessed by the moon goddess herself with power that makes ordinary alphas look like puppies." Lena's legs finally gave out entirely. She sat down hard on the kitchen floor. The pendant pulsed in her hand, hot and bright and alive. "But tonight," Miriam continued, "the mate bond activated it. The bond between you and Damon was so powerful that it overwhelmed the pendant's suppression. Your true wolf is waking up, Lena. After 22 years of sleeping, she is waking up." As if in confirmation, something stirred deep inside Lena. Not Sage, something beneath Sage. Something immense and ancient and patient. A wolf that had been waiting in the dark for 22 years. A wolf that was done waiting. Sage felt it too. Something is here, something beneath me. Something. The presence rose, not violently, not aggressively, like a tide, like a sunrise, like something inevitable finally arriving. My mother, Lena whispered. He killed my mother. Damon's father killed my mother. Yes. And Damon sits on her throne. Yes. And the moon goddess made him my mate. Miriam was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke with the careful precision of a woman who had spent 87 years choosing her words. The moon goddess does not make mistakes, Lena. She makes corrections. Perhaps the mate bond between you and Damon is not a cruelty. Perhaps it is justice, the universe's way of returning what was stolen. Lena stared at the pendant blazing in her palm, the crescent moon and star, her mother's crest, her birthright, her identity hidden beneath servants' clothes and scrub-draw hands for 22 years. The question is, Miriam said, leaning forward on her cane, what are you going to do about it? The pendant pulsed once, twice, 3 times, like a heartbeat, like a beginning. Lena closed her fingers around it and stood up. She knew exactly what she was going to do. The doors of the great hall weighed 300 pounds each. Lena knew this because she had polished them every week for the past 6 years. She pushed them open with one hand. They swung wide as if they weighed nothing at all. Inside, the celebration was at its peak. Music played. Glasses clinked. 300 wolves laughed and drank and congratulated Vera on her new title. The future Luna of Shadowvale, chosen not fated but who cared about that small detail when there was free champagne. Every head turned. 300 pairs of eyes landed on the Omega servant standing in the doorway. The girl who scrubbed pots. The girl who lit candles. The girl who was invisible, but something was different tonight. Lena's eyes, previously soft brown, flickered with silver-gold light. Her auburn hair caught the candlelight and seemed to burn. She stood straight and tall and still and radiated an energy that made every wolf in the room take an involuntary step backward. An energy that had no business coming from an Omega. An energy they had never felt before. But their wolves had. Somewhere deep in blood memory, in the genetic archive that every wolf carries, their wolves recognized that energy. And they were afraid. Vera was the first to speak. She stepped forward in her red dress. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes were sharp. What is she doing here? Someone remove her immediately. No one moved. They couldn't. The energy pouring off Lena was ancient, dominant. It pressed against every wolf in the room like gravity tripling, like the air itself had become heavy. Like the moon goddess had reached down from the sky and placed her hand on the room. Damon stood on the platform. His silver eyes were locked on Lena. His face was a mask, but his hands, his scarred, battle-hardened hands, trembled at his sides. The bond screamed between them. Lena's voice rang across the hall, clear, steady, carrying to every corner with an authority that didn't ask for attention. It commanded it. Tell them. Damon didn't move, didn't speak. His jaw was locked so tight a muscle jumped beneath the scar on his neck. Tell them what you felt tonight. Tell them what the moon goddess declared between us. Tell them who your real mate is. She paused. Or I will. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. Vera stepped forward again. Her composure was cracking, hairline fractures spreading across her perfect mask. This is pathetic. A delusional Omega servant interrupting a sacred ceremony with fantasies about the Alpha. Guards, take her. Sit down, Vera. 2 words, spoken quietly, without malice, without shouting. But they carried something behind them, a force that hit Vera like a physical blow. Her knees buckled. She staggered sideways and caught herself on a table. Her ice-blue eyes went wide with shock. An Alpha command. Every wolf in the room felt it reverberate through their bones. An Alpha command, the sacred, unquestionable authority that only true Alphas could wield. Issued by an Omega. Impossible, unless she was never really an Omega at all. Damon spoke from the platform. His voice was quiet and something in it had broken. How are you doing that? Lena looked at him. The man her mother's murderer had raised. The man who sat on a stolen throne. The man the moon goddess had inexplicably chosen as her mate. Ask your father, she said. Oh wait, you can't, because he murdered the woman whose bloodline gives me this power. Silence. Total. Complete. The kind of silence that has weight and mass and presses against eardrums. Lena reached beneath her shirt and pulled out the pendant. It blazed with silver-white light, the crescent moon and star burning like a fallen piece of the sky. Every wolf who saw it recognized the crest. The old wolves gasped. The young wolves stared, and somewhere in the back of the room Elder Miriam smiled. "My name is not Lena Cross. My name is Selenara Silvercrest, daughter of Luna Seraphina, the true alpha bloodline of this territory." She let the words land. Let them sink into the silence like stones into deep water. "Your father killed my mother, stole her throne, burned her legacy, and hid me, her only daughter, as an Omega servant in my own pack house. For 22 years I have scrubbed your floors and cooked your meals and been told I should be grateful for the privilege of breathing your air." Her eyes found Damon's. "And tonight the moon goddess chose me as your mate, and you looked me in the eye and chose someone else." The silence was so deep it had a heartbeat. "So I'll ask you one more time, Alpha." Her voice didn't waver, her eyes didn't drop. The pendant blazed at her chest like a star refusing to die. "Tell them the truth." Damon stood on the platform, the stolen platform, his father's platform. He looked at the woman below him, the servant, the Omega, the ghost he had walked past 1,000 times without seeing. He saw her now. "She's telling the truth," he said. His voice was raw, stripped of authority, stripped of armor, stripped of everything except the naked honesty of a man standing in the wreckage of his own legacy. "She is my mate. The bond is real." The hall erupted. Gasps, arguments, shouts. 300 wolves processing the impossible simultaneously. And above it all Vera's scream, high and sharp and jagged. "No, this is a trick. She's a liar, a nobody. I am the chosen." Enough. Damon's alpha command hit the room like a thunderclap. Instant silence, every wolf frozen. He looked at the crowd, then at Vera, then at Lena. "Everyone out, now." 300 wolves filed through the doors in stunned silence. Vera was the last to leave. She looked at Lena with ice-blue eyes that promised violence. Then she was gone. The doors closed, 2 wolves, 1 hall, the candles burning low between them. Damon stepped down from the platform. "We need to talk," he said. Lena held his gaze. "Yes," she said, "we do." The great hall was built for hundreds. With just 2 people standing in it, the emptiness felt alive, pressing inward from every corner, filling the spaces between candle flames with heavy, expectant silence. Damon stood 6 feet away from Lena, close enough to feel the bond thrumming between them. Far enough to pretend he wasn't affected. He was failing at pretending. "How long have you known?" he asked. "About an hour." He stared at her. "An hour. You found out an hour ago that you're Silvercrest and you walked in here, and what was I supposed to do? Wait another 22 years, go back to scrubbing pots and pretend everything was fine?" He opened his mouth, closed it. She had a point and they both knew it. "My father." His voice changed on the word, dropped lower, darker. Like touching something that burned. "You said he murdered my mother." "Yes." "I didn't know. Would it have mattered?" The question hung between them, honest, unflinching, demanding an answer that couldn't be faked. Damon was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was stripped of everything that made him sound like an alpha. What was left sounded like a man. "Yes, it would have mattered." He stepped down from the last step of the platform and stood on the same level as her for the first time. Equal ground. "My father was a monster, Lena. I knew that. I always knew that. I challenged him because I knew that. I fought him and I won, or I killed him depending on how honest I'm being, because staying under his rule would have destroyed this pack." He paused. His silver eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw past the armor, past the cold, past the carefully constructed walls. She saw the boy underneath, bruised, frightened, forged into something hard and sharp because soft things didn't survive in Conrad Blackwood's house. "But I didn't know about this, about the Silvercrests, about your mother, about you. He never told me. None of the elders ever told me except apparently Miriam, who has been keeping secrets for 22 years. You sit on a throne built on my mother's blood." He flinched, visibly, as if she had struck him. "I know. You felt the mate bond tonight and you chose Vera anyway. I know." "Why?" The candles flickered. Shadows danced on the stone walls. The great hall, the hall where his father had ruled through terror, waited for his answer. "Because when I looked across that room and felt the bond hit me, when my wolf howled your name inside my skull, the first thing I felt wasn't joy, Lena. It wasn't completion or destiny or any of the beautiful things they say the mate bond is supposed to feel like." He swallowed. His hands, those scarred, destructive hands, hung open at his sides, surrendered. The first thing I felt was terror. Lena studied his face, searching for the lie, finding none. Terror, she repeated. My father taught me 3 things. Love is the fastest way to die, attachment is a leash, and the moment you care about someone you hand them a weapon aimed at your chest. His voice cracked, hairline fracture, barely audible, but Lena heard it. I looked at you, and I felt the bond, and I thought, if I let this in, it will break me. It will crack open every wall I've ever built, and I will be defenseless. And defenseless men end up like my mother. Silence. So I chose the safe option, the strategic option, the option that didn't make me feel like my ribcage was being pried open with bare hands. Lena was quiet for a long moment. The pendant pulsed gently at her chest, warm now not burning, as if it was listening too. You chose the option that cracked mine open instead, she said softly. The words landed on him like a physical weight. His shoulders dropped. His head bowed. For one moment, just one, the most powerful alpha in the territory looked like a man drowning in his own wreckage. I know, he said, and I am sorry. I don't say that word often. I don't say it well. I have spent my entire life making sure I never had to say it at all. But I am saying it now, and I mean it more than I have ever meant anything. Lena looked at him, the son of the man who killed her mother, the alpha who rejected her bond in front of 300 wolves. The man shaped by a monster who was trying desperately, clumsily, painfully to be something different. She should hate him, part of her did. That part was loud and justified and burning. But another part, the part connected to him by a thread of fire and starlight, saw the truth. Damon Blackwood was not his father. He was his father's damage, and damage could be healed, not forgiven, not yet, maybe not ever, but healed. I don't forgive you, she said. I wouldn't either. But I believe you. Something shifted in his silver eyes. Not hope, he was too damaged for hope, but something adjacent to it, something in the same neighborhood. So now what, she asked. Before he could answer, the doors exploded open. Marcus burst in, breathing hard, eyes wild, hair disheveled. Damon, we have a problem. What? It's Vera. She's gone, and she took half our warriors with her. The blood drained from Damon's face. She's allied with the Thornback pack, Marcus continued. They're already massing at the eastern border. She says if she can't be Luna, nobody will. In the distance, faint but growing, war horns sounded, deep and ominous and ancient. The sound of wolves preparing for blood. Lena and Damon looked at each other. The bond between them hummed, not yet accepted, not yet complete, but alive. A thread connecting 2 people who had every reason to be enemies and no reason to trust each other except the inexplicable certainty that they were meant to stand together. How long? Damon asked Marcus. An hour, maybe less. Damon looked at Lena, the orphan Omega who was neither orphan nor Omega, the woman who had walked into his hall and shattered his world with 3 words, tell them the truth. Can you fight? He asked. I don't know what I can do. An hour ago I was scrubbing pots. An hour ago you issued an alpha command that dropped Vera Sinclair to her knees. Something flickered in his silver eyes. Not amusement, not exactly, but something close. I think you can do more than scrub pots, Selenara Silvercrest. It was the first time anyone had ever spoken her true name. It sounded like a key turning in a lock. The war horns grew louder. They came at midnight. 40 wolves, Vera's loyalists and the Thornback pack's most vicious fighters, poured from the eastern forest like a dark tide. The thunder of paws on earth, war cries splitting the cold air, the ground trembling beneath the charge. Shadowvale had 30 wolves left, the ones who stayed loyal, the ones who chose their alpha over Vera's promises. Not enough. Nowhere near enough. Damon shifted first. The transformation rippled through him like black water, bones reshaping muscles, expanding skin, giving way to fur. Where the man had stood a massive black wolf, now crouched, silver-eyed, scarred, and radiating lethal intent. Marcus shifted beside him, a dark gray wolf built like a siege engine. Behind them, Shadowvale's remaining warriors formed a defensive line at the pack house gates. Lena stood behind them all. Human form, she hadn't shifted. She didn't know how, not as her true self. Sage paced inside her, and beneath Sage the other wolf, the real wolf, stirred in the deep darkness like a leviathan turning in its sleep. The pendant burned at her chest. Not yet, Lena told herself, or told the wolf beneath, or told the moon goddess. She wasn't sure anymore who she was talking to. Not yet. The first wave hit. Thornback wolves, larger, wilder, and bred for violence, crashed into Shadowvale's line with the force of a battering ram. The sound was horrific. Snarling, snapping, yelps of pain, the wet, terrible sound of teeth finding flesh. The line held, barely. Marcus took a slash across his flank, a thornback wolf catching him with claws like curved knives. He snarled and fought on, bleeding steadily into the churned earth. 3 Shadowvale wolves went down in the first minute. Then 5. The line buckled inward like a bow being drawn past its limit. And above it all, standing on a ridge overlooking the carnage like a queen watching a chess board, Vera Sinclair watched. She hadn't shifted. She stood in her red dress, mud-stained, now torn at the hem, with her arms crossed and her ice-blue eyes bright with satisfaction. She had waited years to be Luna. She had schemed and maneuvered and smiled her beautiful poisonous smile. And when it was stolen from her by an Omega servant in a kitchen uniform, she did what beautiful poisonous people do. She set the world on fire. "Bring me the Omega's head," she called down to her wolves. Her voice carried across the battlefield like silk wrapped around a blade. "And bring the Alpha alive. I want him to watch." 2 thornback wolves broke through the defensive line. They were enormous, gray-furred, yellow-eyed monsters that moved with coordinated precision. They ignored the other fighters. They had one target, Lena. They charged directly at her. Damon saw them. His black wolf howled a sound of pure, desperate fury and tried to intercept. But he was pinned down, fighting 3 wolves at once. Claws raked his shoulder. Teeth snapped at his throat. He couldn't reach her. "Lena, run." The thought screamed through the bond. She didn't run. Something inside her, something older than memory, older than fear, older than the 22 years she had spent pretending to be small, rose up like a tide that had been waiting for the moon to call it home. The pendant blazed white-hot. The suppression shattered. It didn't break gradually. It detonated, 22 years of containment vaporizing in a single instant of release. The energy that erupted from Lena's chest was visible, a shockwave of silver-white. Light that rippled outward across the battlefield like a stone dropped into still water. Every wolf on the field, friend and enemy, froze. Lena shifted, not into Sage, not into the small gray wolf she had always known, into something that had never existed in living memory. A wolf made of moonlight. She was enormous, larger than Damon, larger than any thornback, larger than any wolf that had walked this territory in 100 years. Pure silver-white fur that glowed as if the moon itself had taken animal form and descended to the earth. Eyes blazing with ancient gold-and-silver light that held the weight of a bloodline stretching back to the first wolves the moon goddess ever created. The Silvercrest wolf. Awake, finally awake. Every wolf on the battlefield dropped, not by choice, by instinct, by blood memory. By the genetic recognition hardwired into every wolf's soul that knew that the being standing before them outranked every alpha who had ever lived. Lena howled. The sound was not a sound. It was a force. It rolled across the battlefield and echoed off the mountains and shook the ancient pines and reached into the chest of every wolf present and gripped their hearts with absolute, irrefutable authority. The thornback wolves, wolves who answered to no alpha, wolves who feared nothing, wolves who lived. For blood pressed their bellies to the earth and whimpered. Vera's army collapsed in seconds, not defeated, submitted. There was no fighting this. There was no resisting this. This was not an alpha command. This was the moon goddess speaking through her chosen daughter, and the moon goddess said stop. Vera stood alone on her ridge. Her ice-blue eyes were wide, not with anger anymore, but with something she had never felt in her carefully controlled life, pure primal terror. "No," she whispered. Then louder. Then screaming. "No, she's just an Omega. She's nothing. Fight her, fight." Lena turned her glowing golden eyes to Vera. She didn't growl, she didn't snarl, she didn't need to. She simply looked at the woman who had called her a stray, who had knocked food from her hands, who had whispered cruelties and smiled poisonous smiles and stood in a red dress and claimed a title that was never hers to claim. Lena looked at her. Vera's knees buckled. She collapsed to the muddy ground, shaking uncontrollably. Broken not by violence but by the simple, undeniable reality that she had never been as powerful as she pretended to be. The battle was over, not with blood, not with death, with power so pure and ancient that fighting it was like fighting gravity. Lena shifted back. She stood barefoot in the churned grass. Human again, small again, shaking. The pendant pulsed gently at her chest, tears rolled down her face. Not tears of sadness, not tears of victory, tears of recognition. She finally knew who she was. After 22 years of being invisible, of being told she was nothing, she finally understood what had been sleeping inside her all along. She was not nothing, she had never been nothing. Damon shifted beside her, human form, bleeding from a dozen wounds. He looked at her with an expression she had never seen on any face in her entire life. Awe, pure, uncomplicated, staggering awe. "What are you?" he breathed. Lena looked at him, the blood on his face, the wonder in his eyes, the bond humming between them like a song that had been waiting 22 years to be sung. "I'm exactly who the moon goddess said I am," she said. She paused. "Your mate." The bond blazed between them, golden white and complete and whole and unbreakable. Two halves of something that was always meant to be one. He reached for her hand. Let him take it. Dawn came slowly over Shadowvale. Pink light crept across the horizon like a whisper. The forest was quiet, exhausted, as if the trees themselves needed to rest after what they had witnessed. Birds began to sing, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. The way the world always resumes after the impossible happens. Vera was taken into custody at first light. She said nothing as they led her away. No sharp words, no poisonous smiles. Her ice-blue eyes stared at nothing. The woman who wanted to be Luna had been undone by the girl she called a stray. The thornback wolves retreated into the forest without a fight. They wanted no part of whatever they had witnessed. Some things are bigger than war. Some wolves are bigger than ambition. The pack gathered in the great hall, wounded and exhausted and shaken, but alive, all of them alive. Damon stood on the platform, Lena beside him, not behind him, not below him, beside him. He spoke to his pack with a voice stripped of pretense. "I owe you the truth, all of it." He told them everything. His father's coup, the murder of Luna Serafina, the hidden heir who had been lighting their candles and scrubbing their floors and cooking their meals for 22 years while the stolen throne gathered dust above her head. The silence that followed was the loudest sound Lena had ever heard. Damon turned to her. His silver eyes held hers. "This throne does not belong to me," he said. "It never did. It belongs to Selenara Silvercrest, the rightful alpha of this territory. I will step down." "No." Her voice, quiet but absolute, stopped him mid-sentence. Every wolf in the hall stared. "I didn't come here for a throne," Lena said. She stepped forward. The pendant rested peacefully at her chest, no longer burning, no longer suppressing, just shining gently, a crescent moon cradling a tiny star. "I didn't even know about any of this until last night. I came here because a man I was fated to denied me in front of every wolf I've ever known, and I decided, for the first time in my life, that I was done being invisible." She turned to the pack, 300 faces staring back at her, wolves who had walked past her for 22 years without seeing her, wolves who were seeing her now. "I don't want revenge. I don't want to punish a son for his father's sins. What Damon's father did was monstrous, but Damon is not his father. He proved that tonight when he stood beside me instead of against me." She looked at Damon. "The moon goddess chose us, not because it was convenient or strategic or comfortable. She chose us because together, Silvercrest and Blackwood, this pack can become something it has never been." "And what's that?" Damon asked. "One word, simple, true, the only word that mattered. Whole." The silence held for one heartbeat, 2, 3. Then Damon stepped forward. He took her hand carefully as if she might vanish if he held too tight and raised it between them, in front of 300 wolves, in the hall where his father had murdered her mother's legacy, in the place where she had spent 22 years being invisible. "The moon goddess chose," he said, and for the first time since Marcus could remember, the alpha of Shadowvale smiled. Small and uncertain and new, like a muscle being used for the first time. And she wasn't wrong. A howl rose from the back of the hall, then another, then 10, then 100. Then every wolf in Shadowvale was howling, a sound that shook the rafters and rattled the windows and echoed across the territory and into the forest beyond. Not a war cry, not a victory cry, a homecoming. Lena stood in the great hall with her mate's hand in hers and the pendant shining at her chest and 300 wolves howling her name, her real name, for the first time. Selenara Silvercrest, the girl who was never nobody. They say the moon goddess never makes mistakes. They say every mate bond is sacred, perfect, destined. Standing in the moonlight that poured through the great hall windows, silver and gold and ancient and new, Lena finally understood. The moon didn't choose wrong. The moon chose exactly right. It just took everyone else a while to catch up. The pendant pulsed one final time against her heart. Warm, steady, home. And somewhere high above, beyond the stars and the clouds and the endless turning sky, the moon goddess smiled. She always knew. She was just waiting for them to figure it out. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel for more werewolf romance tales, alpha kings, rejected mates, and powerful omega stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment below telling me what are your thoughts in this story and what kind of werewolf stories you'd like to see next. Your support means everything and helps me create more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next.